What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Tristan. Most of you know me these days. Welcome back to another episode of the Ambition Podcast. And today we have a really good person on the podcast, someone who I respect highly and have a lot of, I would say, admiration for over the last couple of years, and that is Nathan. Say what's up, man.
How's it going?
So yeah, for those that are wondering kind of about Nathan, kind of give the viewers and listeners a little bit of a background to who you are.
Yeah, no problem. I'm originally from Ohio. Really kind of did everything I came into traditional sports prior to getting into esports. I really one day wanted to know how to get into it, asked the question of how do I get into esports, and 3 weeks later I was Recreation Director for GGEA under the Infinite umbrella. So I really did that for the amount of time up until the big situation that happened with Infinite, and then kind of went from there. But really just been kind of keeping tabs on the esports scene and then trying to get a couple of different ideas and everything up and running. So.
Yeah, definitely. So, how did you kind of, what was your journey getting into esports or even traditional sports for that matter?
So, played sports as a kid, primarily soccer, a bunch of different ones, and then got into sports management and sports administration in college. I worked 9 years for U.S. Youth Soccer, so I worked in an operations department, putting on a number of the large-scale soccer events throughout the nation. And then there was the idea that bringing the idea of traditional sports into the esports realm via the recreational side. So my role at GGA was really coming in and trying to create an area which really it's kind of being touched on now, but it's not to I think the full extent what it could be as far as creating recreational leagues like a soccer or a basketball or a football, but in an esports realm. So trying to create that, and that's what we were working on in the process of trying to figure out when we were with GGA.
Okay. So how did, obviously I know you were brought into GGEA, so, obviously wasn't there probably from the beginning, but kind of talk about, your experience, once you got into the esports team, what it was kind of like, obviously, dealing with those, types of players. Because, I remember GGEA had, definitely had a couple of Call of Duty teams, a semi-pro League of Legends team, and I believe a couple of Overwatch teams.
Yeah, we did. I came in right at the tail end of the I guess I could call it the COD experiment that GGA had.
Okay.
So those decisions kind of were made prior to me getting there. I did work a little bit with the contenders team. We did have one contenders team, and then we did have a League of Legends team, which was in house the entirety of the time we were at GGA. As far as working with them, it was really I was just helping if they asked for it. I didn't really do anything as far as overseeing those. I was just making sure like their areas were up and running because it was in kind of conjunction with the area that I was trying to create for the recreation idea that we were coming up with. So yeah, all those teams were there, but really they were as far as managed or oversaw by the president and then the team manager that we had for each of those.
Okay. So obviously, esports is a lot, extremely different from traditional sports and everything, and kind of walk myself and others through what that process would be like, when you'd be helping players and other let's just say recreational gamers who really want to get into esports.
No, so it was a very big learning curve for me. Because I did come over from traditional sports, esports from everything that I had talked about or learned about in our different things was the up and coming thing. When you get into it, you realize that esports has been around for a while. It's just now really I don't know if it's, you could say the eyes are opening of other people outside of the world of esports are finally realizing that this is a thing that's actually catching on, or is here already and is actually becoming a bigger thing than they realize. But as far as it goes with like the development of players, it was an interesting thing to see how the age and where those kids are, and the ones that we were looking at least for the League of Legends team, you know, if they had to make replacements that they would look into. And a couple of the first things that I was able to do when I first started there was actually sit in and see scrims and how they were evaluating. And that was some of the, you know, it was just amazing because I'm used to, like, when I was a soccer coach, evaluating players on their skill level and where they are at the right, and it's, the correlation between the two is so similar because it's someone making sure that this, you know, they're in the right lane, or they're doing the right call outs, or they're doing, you know, depending on what they're doing in League of Legends or what their role is. And it's, so there's definitely similarities between the two, and that was kind of what really was just drawing me in, and really the whole esports experience was amazing. And you know, I miss it. I'd love to get back into it, but it's one of those things where it's like, you know, I keep likening it to the scene from Office Space where the guy gets hypnotized and then the guy hypnotizing him dies halfway through.
Yeah.
So he never becomes unhypnotized. Well, yeah, I'm still unhypnotized. You know, it's like I want to get back into it. So,
yeah,
you know, it's a neat process. It's amazing. I'm kind of almost in the middle of groups. I'm always trying to explain to people that just think it's gaming and a bunch of kids playing video games,
Yeah.
and trying to explain to them what it really is, because like you asked, you know, seeing the other side of it, seeing how they're actually working out, seeing how they're eating healthier, they're concentrating on their mental status, and they're making sure that they're getting a lot of sleep. It's like, well, they don't really sleep. They do this, and this, and they go. I'm like, no, they focus on it because there's stuff that they're doing studies, and they see all the things, and it's, you know, it's trying to get people to understand that, and then, you know, they're just stuck in their ways, and it's,
oh yeah, I mean,
it's a difficult thing.
It's hilarious you bring that up because, like, where I live in Nebraska, and like that is one of the, like, first challenges, you know, like explaining to people that outside of a part-time job, I'm like, I run a full-time gaming esports organization, like, you know, and they'll be like, well, what's that? I'm like, we send players and make content, you know, for people to watch, and, you know, it's this whole, like, oh, that's such a waste of time, oh, that's not a sport, you know, and it's hilarious, you know, that, you know, that stigma's still attached to the industry overall, and, you know, and I think it's kind of interesting that, you know, slowly, as, you know, the months and years go by, esports has kind of shell-shocked people in a lot of ways as to the true power, you know, obviously with a lot of these, you know, like now, you know, performance coaches and nutritionists and so many others coming into this side of things. So, you know, what is your kind of thoughts on that?
Well, it's definitely something that is amazing to see how much it grows, and then how many of the, you know, the large organizations, as far as sponsorship dollars that come into it.
Yeah.
You know, when you have events like the International and the prize pool that goes into that, and just, you know, just the sheer amount of money that you see being done for prizes, and these kids, you know, and I think that opens a lot of people's eyes. I mean, what, a 16-year-old took home, what, $3 million, right? The Fortnite thing in New York?
Before taxes, yeah.
Yeah, before taxes. Always before.
Before taxes and organization cuts, like.
Right. And mom and dad take their cable bill out of it, but you know, it's one of those things where it's people open their eyes to it. It's something that's really, it's exciting to see, and I think it's global. I mean, that's the part that I think some people, even, you know, like here locally, when you're just talking to people, they don't recognize and really understand how global esports is.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the neat thing about it, is the potential that of what what these kids can do and where they can actually go to. I mean, when you hear about, you know, teams jumping on planes going to Germany or over to Poland to playing things, and all of a sudden they're playing PUBG, you know, a big PUBG tournament in the area, and it's just awesome to watch. And that was kind of the fun thing that we had, because it was, you're watching these guys while the stuff's being streamed. They're somewhere competing, and then you see them in the office.
Yeah.
Like a week later, or they're coming through, or they're out there and they're working out, and you're high fiving, and they know who you are, or you watch, and I was probably watching more games than I'd ever watched on different streaming services. So it's just kind of like one of those things where I'm like, wow, I'm really, before it was like maybe I would watch a Call of Duty, or sometimes I'd watch an Overwatch, or maybe a CS:GO. But then it's like when we got a TV in the thing, and okay, Optic's on. Let's go. We're watching Optic. But I think that was the other thing, and that was kind of the part for me that was getting used to it was, the difference between what it means to be a fan and what, the culture is.
Yeah.
And, it's like if I really, and there's still part of me probably still trying to figure out what culture is, and that was always something that you hear in different things about the culture.
Yeah.
But as I watched more, or as I followed more of the Optic teams, and I got to know, the Gears team when they would be there and that stuff, or I'd watch, different podcasts and things like that, and kind of start to understand what, and for me it was because we were part of it. I was watching the Optic stuff, because that was what we supported, and really getting to understand that these are a little bit more than fans, and I think a lot of it is because esports is so
different.
It's so transparent.
Yes.
Because when something happens, the esports guys get out there and they let you guys know why.
Yeah.
It's not like a professional organization where a guy gets released on a Tuesday and then you get to find out, well, here's all the crap that happened.
Yeah.
And here's why it happened, but it's Friday now that we really let you know why.
Yeah.
It's transparency and genuine, and it seems genuine. A lot of the stuff when you hear announcements, or you see quick tweets or something going out, the president or whoever's doing it seems in a genuine state, like, this is why we had to do it. It's all mutual. We're nothing but respect for him or her, and we wish them the best. And if they need any help finding something, we'll do everything we can. And that's the neat thing to see, is that it's just a different. And I think that's something that fans can embrace, because that's just a different way. It's like they feel more a part of it because they're so more connected to it. And that for me is what I started to represent or see, and then really start to feel for as the whole situation happened. And it was just really kind of, and then everything over the past year that's gone down, it's just been kind of a shitty thing and a sad thing to see and hear, and then with everything, and really feel that side of the green wall from that line. Obviously I've been with it. I was following it for a year and a half, but the folks that have been with it since the beginning, it's, you feel for those guys, and happy that a lot of them have gotten on with other teams and following, maybe under a different title as far as their team or sponsor goes, but they're still the same guys, so it's at least be able to follow them in that regard.
Yeah, I grew up in the Call of Duty community, and like it's always funny. Optic is actually the reason why I got into esports and into the content creation myself. So, it's always hilarious. Kind of seeing the cult-like following that Optic has obviously made over the last 13-something years. Obviously, GGEA kind of ended, too long of a history, or, really much like, I wouldn't say not enough, but just like, it felt like there was room left to accomplish a lot of things. Do you feel like GGEA still had a lot of room to make an impact in esports? Because again, we really haven't seen this whole recreational side to esports, as well as a developmental pipeline of sorts from a lot of people.
I think as far as what GGA was doing at the time, I think we were on the right track. We definitely had the right people in place for what we were doing. The League of Legends team, I think each of those players, when we got near the end, was picked up The coach that we had for GGEA, I believe, is now with Evil Geniuses, and he was with an organization recently, and then I think that group went to Worlds, and then now he's with Evil Geniuses. So I mean, the guys, I mean, Andrew Cooley knew what he was. I mean, he knew how to handle. Yeah, so he knew how to handle that, especially in League. I mean, that was really his, his forte was League of Legends, and I mean, now he's doing, he's worked on and he's moved on with something that he's doing right now at the Esports Performance Academy that he's got, and that's being successful. The other side of GGA was obviously our fighting game scene with Doc and Cephalon, and they arguably they've taken that to the next level and have the EX Dojo here in Dallas. That's arguably the best fighting games group in the area, and regularly go and place at stuff all over the nation right now. So I mean, obviously what we were doing worked, because it's continuing to work, and even the guys that we had as players went on. I mean, even the contenders players, once that kind of went the way it did, those guys were picked up by different academies around the Overwatch League. So I think they are still progressing as well. So I mean, the rec side of it, I mean, it was, that was kind of the question mark, and being a traditional sports guy coming in, I was the question mark. So, at least Andrew and Doc knew what they were doing, but I was trying to get it figured out. I mean, it's like, do we bring everybody in-house and do it like the local, or do we do it online, or is that even, so there's still a lot of things we were trying to work through. There was some things behind the scenes that were kind of going on that was like being moved in different directions that didn't allow different things to happen, but I think there's an area for it. I think it just depends on how it's done. I think there's definitely different areas and places that could create those areas and create leagues, be it through your local rec centers or something along those lines. But it's a question mark, because it's what platform do you use, what games do you focus on, who do you have to how do you get them to organize it out as something that would be like a league format. And so it's interesting to see, but I think it can be done. It's obviously one of those things, if I come up with a brainstorm at home, I'll write it down and see if I can figure it out and make sense in my head. So it's never something that's gone, it's not completely finished, but then it's going to be finding out who wants to get behind it. So always thinking about things.
Yeah, I mean, that's always good, to have those, additional ideas. And, I think going into, obviously, the new decade, we don't really know what to expect from, the esports world. Obviously, it's been crazy, in terms of growth. Franchise leagues, whether they are good or bad, in the respective games, are absolutely dominating the culture of esports. But I also, and I've talked about this, I think, both off the podcast with, and on the podcast, that Collegiate Esports seems to be kind of the second-class citizen, in terms of esports, performance, as well as, just really catching eyes around that. Do you think that, something like GGEA or, anything in the future really could kind of help bridge that collegiate side of things into, the more esports pipeline where, it's, you start out as an amateur and then you become semi-pro, and then your pro players, and then your tier ones like Faker or other players depending on the respective game.
I think there needs to be. I think there should be, because it was one of the things when I kind of came in, and I was like, well, there's collegiate esports, but it's not like when it gets to be June that all of a sudden the pros are looking at the college guys that are graduating. It's not like the college level is a feeder. Now, maybe there's people or players in there that might be good enough to be looked at. I don't know. I mean, I think, when we were talking about it, it's like, if they're really that level, they're already going to be known, or they're already going to be in somebody's pipeline or wheelhouse that they're working into. So, I don't know. I mean, maybe if at some point we start talking the semi-professional level, Maybe that's a level that they will start working into, or maybe that, that scene. I think the academy levels that we have at different orgs are on the right path. I mean, they're definitely, training the right people in the right ways, and hopefully showing them, life ways too on how to do finances and all those sort of things as well. So, but as far as that goes, I mean, it's really trying to find those young players, having open events, having events where people can come out, the general public can come out and really, showcase, and then that's where they're seen. I mean, I know some groups are having, I think there's even something here locally in Arlington where they're having things on Thursdays for people to come out, and maybe there's a scout there or something like that. So, hearing about a scout in esports is kind of is a crazy thing to think about, but they've got to be out there, because it's not, they're not sitting there like Big Brother watching every single game online saying, man, this kid's wrecking or anything. It's
there's no Scooter Braun of esports to my knowledge. Right. I mean, if there was, I mean, it would kind of be surprising. I mean, even though at this point, hey, Scooter Braun's in esports with 100 Thieves, he probably could do it if he wanted to. But, that's always been something I've personally wondered, because, I mean, myself, coming out of high school, not purely off of competitive play, mostly because, as a esports owner and a content creator, I have a little bit different of a mindset than most people, and I was lucky enough to get collegiate gaming scholarships, and I, when you think about that, that's just a relatively unique thought that you already have, players who are practically semi-pro going into the collegiate level, and then what happens after the collegiate? It's like, oh, hey, I run an organization by chance.
Right.
Unfortunately, that never got to happen. Rest in peace to that idea. Would have loved to do it, but timing was not right, nor were none of the cards in my favor on that whole issue. So kind of talk a little bit about, obviously, like what you've done since then. I know you kind of work for BSN, and kind of talk a little bit about what you're doing with that.
Yeah, so pretty much completely not any relation to esports. So I actually work in our youth division. So I work with a lot of different youth clubs and organizations, and right now working on providing them with equipment and apparel. So we sell pretty much any equipment, working with specific vendors and that sort of thing. And then we can do customized jerseys and other types of jerseys and that sort of stuff along those lines. So really, if a football, soccer, basketball, volleyball, any of the traditional sports really is what I'm back into for now, and just kind of going through that. So just if they reach out to me, I'm making phone calls each day, calling specific territories. So I'm really calling East Coast, Colorado, and Hawaii on a daily basis. So.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, the, traditional sports and esports are always kind of compared, or, there's at least attempts to always compare. How do you see esports, I would say, very similar to traditional sports, and then, on the flip side, how is esports obviously different from that of traditional sports?
Yeah, it's one probably almost on a daily basis at work. I'm always, discussing esports and what it was, and they're kind of, people know what it is. I mean, it's not like, I work with a fairly younger group of guys, and everybody's playing games. We're just talking about, they're talking about going home and playing COD tonight. So, it's different, and it's not. I mean, I don't, a conversation I had the other day was almost like when it comes to talking about esports and calling the players athletes, it's like, did esports do itself a disservice by calling itself esports and athletes in the beginning? Because now nobody gives them any credibility as athletes. So it's like, somewhere in the beginning, in the sands of time, whoever started this thing with calling it that, may have doomed us from the beginning. But You know, but trying to explain to them the athletic side of it, that they're not just sitting in a basement. You know, it's what they're always talking about. Well, aren't these all these esports organizations in the bottom of buildings? It's like, no, they're not in the bottom of buildings. They're on the top floor in a lot of them.
Yeah,
you know, they have three floors in some places. You know, it's just like but you know, getting them to understand that it's not, you know, they're not just doing these things, they're out working out, that some of them could probably outlift and outrun half the guys in my office. You know, it's just like, these guys don't just, you know, they're not just sitting around eating Cheetos.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, the organizations are legitimate. The people that run these organizations are legitimate individuals. I mean, these guys have backgrounds in business. They know what they're doing. This is not just, you know, it's not a flash in the pan.
This just isn't like a hobby between some, you know, college dorm room guys. This is, you know, a real deal. I think that you know, for me, obviously, I've been in esports for, you know, so many years. I think the, like, shell shock moment when I realized, like, how big in terms of, you know, business people coming into esports actually was when you know, Lee Trink obviously got into FaZe Clan, because, you know, I'd always knew, like, okay, it's you know, obviously, you know, for Call of Duty guys, you know, Temper, Rain, you know, Banks, all those different types of people. And then, like, one day I went scrolling through LinkedIn and I found Lee Trink's, like, resume, and I just looked at it and I'm like, oh dear God, I'm scared. I'm like, I'm an esports owner, and I'm like, I feel underqualified now. I'm like Virgin Records and Atlantic Records, and I'm just like, oh dear God. I'm like, this is what the world's come to, and that's not a negative jab by any means. You know, obviously, to the people that have those qualifications, bravo, congratulations. You know, there's a very few amount of people in the world who can pull off things like that, and you know, so forth. So, you know, I think it's always crazy. You know, what's even more ironic is, like, I'm originally from Los Angeles, Santa Monica area. And so, like, esports out there is obviously the hotbed. You know, everything is out there. And, you know, like I said, you know, moving into Nebraska, you know, after so many years of not living on, you know, the West or the East Coast, it was kind of a shock to me. You know, like, esports is not really a big thing. You know, like, I'm pretty sure, you know, Dan Clark, you know, who runs E United, spent years actually trying to get Riot to host a League of Legends event out here, and so that was a crazy feat of its own, you know. And obviously, you know, things are always, you know, changing as time goes on. You know, kind of, what do you see the future for esports kind of looking like? You know, again, in terms of the competitive aspect and just the overall reach of esports.
I mean, a lot of the esports we've got out there now are, you know, worldwide. So, I mean, that's the reach-wise. I think we're reaching pretty much all aspects of where we can go. But I think, you know, getting to, you know, because a lot of people would say world stage is where you want to be. But,
yeah,
I mean, esports is global. I think getting, I mean, you know, we're touching on it when we get things that are, you know, on major networks, when they're broadcasting events. You know, maybe not the events that we want to think about, but at the same time, some of the games that are big in esports maybe aren't 100%, you know, kid friendly, so therefore they're not brought up on a TV or on a major, you know, we can watch League of Legends on TV and nobody's going to worry about their kids in the next room or anything. But I mean, it's like, you know, I think there's so much, and it's one of those things where you want to see where it goes. I told somebody, I'm like, well, if they really want to, if they need to make sure that leagues that they start, you know, get legitimate.
Yes.
You know, like, you know, this, you know, I know there's some question marks, you know, is Call of Duty League, you know, the way they've done it, is that the way to do it? You know, and you got people on both sides, right? And, you know, you hope it does, because it not only will it, you know, just like when they said it back in the day, you know, with Hex and when he said it, you know, it's like we put Call of Duty on the map. Well, you also help put esports on the map.
Yes.
You help bring esports into the realm, you know? So it's like, this is the next step, and it's a question mark. As we're jumping in, can we make Call of Duty League legitimate?
Yeah.
Overwatch is doing what they can, but how does Overwatch then move? With League, was it season 3 now we're going into, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So what how do are they? Can we still keep it relevant? Can we still keep it moving into in the next? Keep it moving forward.
Yeah.
That's going to be the biggest one, and then I think the biggest thing, especially for esports, is they've got it. We need to make sure we're getting games that are relevant for all bases.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because your Call of Duty is kind of I don't want to say it's niche because there's tons of people that play it.
Yeah.
But it's really a focus for you're alienating some, and then you're not, because there's some generations that don't want to play it.
Yeah.
There's a number that do, and I mean obviously we're talking millions of people that do play these games. So
yeah.
But there's got to be something that's all encompassing. Everybody and their brother can sit down and watch a football game on a Sunday.
Yeah.
But not everybody plays football.
Exactly.
But it's something to get to that point. I think almost, I do think there's an esports, or the ability for esports to have the pro level, and then to also have, I don't know if it's collegiate, maybe college is the way to go. I don't know if we can get college to the point where people are going to want to watch that, almost like an NFL in the college game.
Well, I mean,
but we'll see. I think it's something that could help, but to have those kids, because it's hard. I mean, you can relate to the pro players, you can.
Yeah.
But then I don't know how if you feel for more of those guys, and if there's a level of people that we can get that they can get behind, is that what helps propel players to the next level, or that what helps organizations with the collegiate level or academy level players? Maybe that's what can help boost those organizations to then get players to the next level. There's all different types of directions we can go, and the nice thing is it's so fluid that there's so many different angles that we can go with esports, where it's not like with traditional sports where it's like, here is field, here are players, here is game, where we can do a number of different things with esports, and it's something that I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
The next big thing, I don't know. I don't know if maybe we're going to start seeing some competitive VR stuff out there, but I don't know to what level. I mean, I don't know if we're all going to be doing the light sticks and who can do it the fastest in what direction or anything, but that might be kind of tough to watch. I do think there will be something VR related though down the line. I don't think we're going to be on the gerbil cages on stage or anything, but I think it will be with VR glasses and that sort of deal. But there'll probably be another. Right now the big games are first person shooters, so it's like
your CS:GO, your Call of Duty. I mean, I know there's a couple different games. I know some people are probably going to get offended by this stance, but whatever. I truly believed that the mobile community and then the sports realm were the biggest mistakes esports have made in the last, 6 years. Obviously, I have taken my stance back on the sports one because... at first I was like, I don't know how big of a community there is. I don't know, what EA and, what, the NFL's, real interest in it is. I didn't know, how, again, serious, things would kind of be. And, obviously, because of, events like Jacksonville and, other, things over time, and including, ratings and seeing how the community, in those games like FIFA, Madden, NBA, obviously with the 2K League, I was kind of like, okay, you've proved me wrong. Mobile, there's still a lot of issues. The last time I think I had a roster in a mobile game was probably 2-3 years ago. And the main reason we got out was just it'd be one roster accusing the other cheating, and then it'd be just massive groups of players all together, and it's it's well, you can't really treat mobile esports the same as you would regular esports.
I feel like there'd be so many different things, and I honestly, mobile wasn't one that I looked into. I mean, we had different we had Allegiance that I think had a couple of they had mobile with Clash. but it wasn't one where I would like, it's like, does everybody have to be on Sprint? I mean, how does this work? Do we all have to be on the same Wi-Fi? Well, you're on an Android, I'm on a Google. So it's, I don't know if that's a big deal or not in that whole thing, but I can see mobile being to like make it like get there. I think, there's the possibility of it. I mean, there's a possibility in anything. I feel like the sports games, I think, are going to build.
Yeah.
For a traditional person and for a traditional sports person and someone who's been in traditional environments, when the NBA 2K League came out and the player contracts happened.
Yeah.
And those initial ones after that draft, and then all of a sudden the G League had, like, the real life basketball players had to wake up and be like, yo, man, they're paying them more than they're paying our guys.
Yeah.
I mean, that was when people in traditional sports were like, wait a minute, what? And then all of a sudden the G League players are making more. So it's like, okay, something's happening here. So when you start talking about a contract for a guy or a girl to play to play esports, that's when traditional sports folks are like, whoa, okay, let's relate to this a little bit, because then they can see, okay, that's just like my guy. Okay, interesting. So hopefully it only goes one way, which is up in either of them. I do think there's more of an area to do it in the sports games. I think FIFA probably is while popular here, may take off a little more in other countries. I think it may actually have a bigger reach and a bigger influence overseas.
Yes.
But I think really your sports games are going to be. It's neat to watch. I don't know if you've watched any of the F1 series stuff.
I've seen a couple of those racing esports games and everything, and I mean, more power to them. If you can have like a small competition online, and I've always said, like, it's kind of cool what you can do with the cars inside the games, being able to customize them. So I've always said, like, if I did a racing game, sponsors are gonna be all over that car. Like, it's gonna look like a freaking NASCAR. I think it'll be kind of interesting. I haven't really watched any of the F1 esports type things though, and that may be something I have to check out. When I'm able to, and maybe have some interest in picking up players in the future.
I mean, you run the idea or risk of that it might be as exciting as watching the actual NASCAR or F1 on TV. But they could run into there too. So I believe there's an arena. I think it's in Florida that they're building. That's it's going to be focused on having those setups in there, which would be really cool to see. I think at
absolutely.
Least to go and visit. I mean, it's like one of those things where, like, going here to Esports Arena here in Arlington was amazing to go to and on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And then anywhere that I can get to check those out. But it's that's one of those things where, okay, now we're putting it around these organizations or seeing professional teams like MLS teams getting behind FIFA, or teams overseas getting behind FIFA, or the NBA teams getting behind NBA. That's the neat part of it. Now it'll be interesting. I haven't, and fault me for not looking it up, but I don't think the NFL teams are really getting behind the Madden stuff yet.
No,
right?
I feel like they could if they really wanted to. I think it's something where. I think it's kind of very similar to like how EA was with the NCAA. They were fine with it until anything became a money issue. And then it's like, well, obviously, there's some NFL teams out there like the Patriots, who obviously own the Boston Uprising, and the Los Angeles Guerrillas in the CDL being owned by the Rams. They could probably do something like that if they really wanted to, more of a brand ambassadorship where they bring in, obviously not Tom Brady, on the side of the Patriots, or Jared Goff on the, the Rams side, but, do something of that nature, which I think could, work out, in the long term, because obviously, that would be just crazy. That would be esports meets Avengers just times whatever number people want to put in the comments.
Right.
But that's always something I've been interested in kind of seeing is obviously the music side of esports, we already have it hooked. One of the things I think that's a lot different in esports, besides that of general content creation, is that there's more cohesiveness and cohesiveness and kind of like collaboration between artists and labels compared to regular content creation. If anyone here on watching this on YouTube, or just anyone who knows YouTube in general, you know what I'm talking about with the broken copyright systems. But it's always kind of nice, to see, like, when the Weeknd first got into esports with Luminosity, and now you've also seen others get in through the music industry. It's kind of really nice, and even again, the traditional sports people, your Shaqs, your A-Rods, your other type of people out there. So it's really kind of interesting, what esports has kind of been like the last, it's been a decade, since, of esports, but really, I would say it's only been actually probably, a good 7 years in the making, for esports, really,
Yep.
like, I think a lot changed after the League of Legends event, where they sold out the Staples Center, probably made Taylor Swift a little bit jealous, probably,
She wrote a song about it. It's okay.
Don't worry. That song's now owned by Scooter Braun.
Yeah, it went platinum. It's all fine.
Which I joked about. Like I wrote an article when I was in my freshman year of high school about like gaming, because like at the time that would have been 2015. And just no one realized how like big esports was. Myself at the time, I thought like esports was huge, and then like the following year, I was asked to do an article, or I was asked to be interviewed for an article in the school newspaper, and I wish that I told someone earlier today, I was like, I wish they would have done it like a week or two later, because literally the week after we had done it, the announcement came out of Shaq, and then followed by the Yankees coming into esports. I was just like, oh, that would have been a gold mine. I'm like, that would have just been a slap in the face to like everybody who's like, esports isn't a real thing. Shaquille O'Neal has entered the chat.
Exactly, right. Let me introduce you to this gentleman.
Yeah. So it's definitely always, I would say, interesting. When things come, down to that aspect. So obviously, kind of talk a little bit about, since we're kind of wrapping up and everything, about, I guess kind of, your future plans, things that people, if they, choose to, to follow you on social media, or, other, areas, and verticals, kind of give them an idea of, of what to kind of expect, and, plug anything that you feel necessary.
Yeah, like I said, it's a lot of stuff that's really still in the design phases of things, but just working on different ideas or ways to get back into the esports game, be it outside of what I'm doing or where I'm currently at. So just trying to get into doing those sort of things. My gamer tag's always been Rabbit Wombat 18. There's always stories to it. Always stems from soccer for me, so that's pretty much what it came to. But that's it on Twitter. It's really what I do on. I'm primarily a console player, so I'm on Xbox.
Oh wow! Okay, that's different from.
So,
we definitely.
Podcast. Everybody turned it off. I understand.
We could definitely play sometime, because I literally have my Xbox One on.
There you go. All right.
I literally turned it on like 3 different times today, because like I went to play Call of Duty, and then I got tired, and I was like, well, I'm gonna play GTA, and like that's just mindless to play. And then like went back to Call of Duty, and then like of course found out that here they are bringing one of my old favorite game modes back into the game, and still somehow I love that they put cranked back into Call of Duty, and I'm like, great, this should get rid of the campers. Nope.
I saw your tweet just a little bit ago before we got on, and I'm like, okay, he's gonna bring this up, because if he's that excited about crank being back in and giving that shout out to Infinity, Infinity Ward, we gotta make sure.
I mean,
he's gonna probably talk about it.
I mean, it's something for me where, obviously, like, the playstyles are a lot different from what they used to be. Like, I started, I started making content and really taking Call of Duty serious after BO2. So, Ghost was always my thing, where it was Strike Zone, cranked, you ran around with what I think was a CBJMS, or you ran around with a PP9 Bison. I think there were a couple times I know me and some friends would run around with the MTAR-X, and I apologize if anyone years later now is watching this. I apologize for those years of the toxicity and rage that we probably made you all feel, because that was just, that was a good part of my childhood.
You can uncross your fingers now. I don't believe that for an instant.
No, I mean, like I hopped into one game after this, and it was one of those like 10v10 size maps, and I'm like, okay, the camping can't be this bad, and it's just like one guy's camping behind a blown up car, the others are like sitting back towards their spawn. There's a couple people rushing around, and I'm like, here we go again.
It's been rough, but like I said, yeah, it's one of those things where it's like one map, like, all right, man, we got all these campers, we got to check corners and all that stuff. The next game, we're checking corners, then we're getting blasted by the guys because they're running. They're just running and gunning. It's just like, okay, let's find a happy medium. So let's jump into ground war, which is just looking at flashlights from 400 yards away. So it's just Sniper City, and it's just like, okay, well, we can get into this game. But I think the rotation that they're doing with this COD and the different game modes, I'm enjoying gunfight. One of my guys that I play with, it's like when everybody's done playing the multiplayer or the ground war, we're like, all right, 3 games of gunfight in the evening. Yep, let's go. So we'll just jump in there and do that, regardless of how we do. But it's, because it's like we're playing it for fun. Now I try to focus on the missions. So I try to do all the, the things of the side stuff that nobody really, I mean, the hardcore ones are going to pay attention to them, but the ones that just want to jump in and gunfight, or jump into ground war and just go at it. But I'll focus on the mission. So I'll have the different characters. I'm running a gun with 5 attachments, or one with 1 attachment, or I've got to get 75 kills. Or sitting there trying to figure out how in the hell to get a finishing move when I'm like behind the guys, keep hitting them with the butt of my gun. I'm like, okay, this is really annoying. So, but that part of it's fun, and that's the part of the game where like we were even talking about it, before we got on, where it's, that quiet time, or the time to just dephase from the day is, waiting for everybody to get to bed, and then I'm on, I'm playing games with the guys, and that's kind of like how I, that's what we do, and it's a fun thing, it's a fun release, but my style of gaming, or the people that I was who I was trying to focus on when we were at GGA, so. I think there's something for them, not just to wait until everybody's in bed, but I think there's an area where that can happen.
Well, I mean, it's certainly not just a, wait till everyone's in bed. I mean, there were times when I was in high school, like, we'd have our winter finals or, our end of the year finals, and there would be kids who literally would just stay there after hours. Like, they would actually have, like, TVs with them, their Xbox, they'd be playing, like, Halo 3 in the indoor commons. And I'm like, more power to you. I'm like, that is a brilliant use of your time. I'm like,
I didn't grow up with, I'll date myself here. I didn't grow up with internet, with multiplayer playing video games. We're playing with NESs and stuff where it's everybody in one place. So, the first experience I ever had was jumping in and playing like a Duke Nukem, where the security guy at my college let us in, and we downloaded it in one of the smart classrooms that had a bunch of, there were 7 of us riding rockets thrown at each other, which was always the funny, how they told them how you died in that game. So that was always fun. And then just seeing all the sensor lines and everything from the mines. But, so that was, we grew up on playing those things or playing in those types of environments. And that was, those are the days. So it's fun to see how the games have come along. And just still being able to play them even in my age, and still being able to at least get a kill here and there. Maybe not lead the leaderboard every time, but it's a lot of fun.
Well, hey, again, I really appreciate you, taking the time to come onto the podcast. I know we have talked about it for a very long time, and finally glad that we could get this all sorted out. Literally, I think this week I'm recording 4 podcasts that aren't even going out till the next year, which is incredibly insane. I had Herb May that I did earlier today. Saturday I have Jose Espen from formerly Robert Morris, and then someone from one of the NBA teams that are all going to be on the podcast.
That's outstanding, man. Well, I do appreciate you having me on for sure. And anytime you want to catch up or make some kids toxic on COD, we'll hit the game.
Yeah, I mean, I have a video I recorded a couple days ago that I've been meaning to upload, but unfortunately I forgot that my mic was not in party chat. So I had this guy calling me just swearing, saying homophobic things, and I'm just I'm like, oh, great. I'm like, here goes the sound effects again. Not this time. It's fun because, it's literally, I just killed this dude and his reactions are, priceless. So, I mean...
that kind of stuff being in gaming, that's probably the side of it that, that...
Well, I mean, it's hilarious.
It's a sad thing, but...
It's hilarious and it's also fun at the same time because there's games where that happens to me and then I just am like, okay, I was just gonna go for 20 kills. I'm like, now I've got a reason to go and do more. And so then here I am switching classes, peeking corners, not even directly or intentionally trying to find the same person. And if they end up leaving or if I end up dropping a chopper gunner on them, I'm like, okay, my job is done. I'm like, I don't care how many kills I get with the chopper gunner. I'm like, my job is done.
The next time I see a chopper gunner, I'll start asking my party chat who pissed off Tristan.
All right, but again, I appreciate you taking the time and everything. For those that are watching or listening to this, hopefully by the time this goes up, Spotify and Apple have made it easier to get podcasts on both Apple and Spotify. I don't ever know if my music platform of choice, which is Amazon Music, will ever allow a podcast. Probably never will. I wish they would, but that's just how it is. But then again, you all know me. My name is Tristan. And with that being said, I'll see all of you guys in the next episode.